I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to be acquainted with Chase the Music. I was not acquainted with it until I worked with Psyche Dunkhouse, one of our members, and her nonprofit organization that she started in the last few years called Cellists for Change. It is one of those organizations that makes your heart full and break at the same time. Clark will explain exactly what his organization does, but it helps kids who are affected by not just cancer, is that right? Is it just cancer? Cancer. And it brings music special, specific to the children who are affected and who are picked for a Chase the Music program. It is one of the most affecting types of programs I've ever seen. And I would say to you, I hope that you go to the website. I hope you check it out. I know Clark has brought his cards. I would say that, like so many Rotary projects, Clark obviously saw a need, and he did something about that need. That is a Rotarian. Every project that Rotary starts with one person, just like Chase the Music. So I'd like you all to welcome Clark Hodge, our speaker today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cassidy.
I put your triangle right there.
Yeah. So while I get reset up over here, and I might need Fred, let's see if I can get to the right. Dun, dun, dun. What's happening? It's not happening up there yet. Okay, so while I sing and dance from up here, one of my goals in life was to create an original word. And I wanted to get that word into the common vernacular. And I do a lot of work with kids, and kids are wonderful, and they've got great senses of humor. And so I created a word, and my word is Gesundheit. Kind of like Gesundheit, I forgive you for sneezing, but Gesundheit's a word that we don't have, and it's really important. It means I forgive you for farting. So as my computer does its little thing here, I think, perfect. And then what we're gonna do is, in the background of my presentation, and Fred, if you'll just keep an eye on the volume for me, I'm gonna keep a little bit of background music going on. And these are all songs that have been commissioned and performed by Chase the Music. So Chase the Music started about 12 years ago. And I used to host house concerts. I live above Lyons. And one year we had a really wonderful group of chamber musicians doing classical music, and we played outside. And this family came, and I'd never met them, but somebody had introduced them. And we slide. Perfect. This is the Thornton family. Some of you may know them. Mike is the principal cello with the the Colorado Symphony, and he's also the head of horns for CU Boulder. Julie, his wife, is a flutist with the Colorado Symphony. And then his little girls there, Lauren on the left. Amanda wasn't born at the time of the concert. She was about 3 months into being a little person. And we played on the rocks. Lauren and I played on the rocks. Mike actually brought, I'm gonna mess up the name. Who's gonna help me with the Ricola horn? An Alpen horn. So about a 13-foot long horn that he performed up in the mountains. So we're in the mountains. What a perfect instrument. Beautiful day. 6 months after that performance, I got a phone call. And Lauren, the little girl on the right there, had cancer. And it ripped my heart apart. And I asked my wife, I said, we've got to do something special for this little girl. And my little boy, they're getting a little bit older at this time, and he had a teddy bear that one of our friends had given him. and his name was Mr. Chubbs. And he had beans in his paws. They're really floppy. Our friends had brought him back from London, and we're like, let's get a Mr. Chubbs for Lauren. He's the coolest teddy bear. And as we're looking for this teddy bear and trying to find out how to get a teddy bear from London to here, we realized, wait a minute, every American kid's got, what, how many do you think, 25 teddy bears? Every sick kid, every kid with cancer probably got 50. So what were the odds that Mr. Chubb was going to be as cool to Lauren as Mr. Chubbs was to Connor? Probably not very good. We spent a couple weeks thinking about it. What should we do? How can we make a special gift for Lauren? I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I had this idea. The family's so musical. What if we had an original piece of music composed and performed just for Lauren? And are you guys able to hear? So in the background, this is Lauren's song. This is called Chase the Morning Sun. And the composer, Clint Needham out of Ohio, had just had twin boys when we commissioned him to do this work. And he was so busy, and he said, I just have to do this for this little girl. I can't imagine what their family's going through. And he tells the story that every morning, every night when you go to bed, no matter how tough that day was, you've got to get that positive attitude that tomorrow morning you're going to get up and chase that morning sun and live positively and live with hope. About a year later, and I only did this as a one-time thing. It was just a beautiful thing. And then about a year later, I had another instance come up where we did a piece for a little boy who had problems at birth. He spent 3 months at the Boulder Community Hospital neonatal ICU. And then I did another one about a year later. And I was working in high tech at the time, and I got laid off, and I realized I have never cried once in high tech. More importantly, as we measure success in high tech, I never made any of you cry. That's a success. You don't make your customers cry, right? So when I got laid off, I said, well, what's important? And what was really important to me is what I was doing with Chase the Music. At the end of Lauren's performance, that very first performance, we're sitting front row down at the Broadmoor. Actually, I skipped a slide, sorry. We performed her piece with the Alliance High School Band. It was done at the CMEA, Colorado Music Educators Association conference down at the Broadmoor. And they were invited to perform as one of the top bands by blind audition, which is interesting because when they do that, you're up against Boulder and Fairview and Aspen and all the high schools against the state. And for a little high school like Lions to do that was amazing. I loved what one of our musicians said. And I actually just met with this musician. It's been 12 years, 11 years ago now, Chris Reeves. Music is fueled by emotion, and this is music at its best. We really changed these kids, the performers. So when Lauren looked up at me as she's in the front row at the end of her song, she looked up and said, Clark, I'm never going to stop smiling. And at that point, I knew this was something really good. And so what we do with Chase the Music, yes. Maybe I can. About there? It's the Zoomers, okay. So hopefully you guys can still hear a little bit of that. And maybe you can pull it up in the house and not the, yeah. So Lauren has been a real special inspiration for me to do this. I love the thought that music is healing. And it's one of those things where everybody's kind of on the spectrum. It's like, yeah, it's healing, it's nice, it makes you feel good, but is it really healing? And I really think it is. It changes your mind and how you perceive the world and how you look at the world. This is a little girl, Katie. We're going to talk about Katie a little bit more towards the end. Yes? Okay, so I will drop the music off.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. You have to know I love the music, so I'm going to make sure you guys get all the music afterwards. And we are, find it. It's paused. Okay. And okay. So, lost myself for a second there. But we do all kinds of music. So, I was a percussionist from elementary school all the way up through high school. It's my instrument of choice. I retired at age 18, came to school here in Boulder, and never returned as a performer again, and the world is a better place for that. But I've always loved music, and I felt like it was a really powerful thing. So we do music of all kinds. We do music from A to Z, Aboriginal to Zydeco. Really powerful stuff. We also touch a lot of different kids. So the kids that we do, does anybody recognize this? This is a challenge. There's a $100 trillion bill, if we can ever figure out what commercial this is. We do all kinds of kids. Oscar Mayer wieners. Who likes Oscar Mayer wieners? Big kids, small kids, kids who climb on rocks, fat kids, skinny kids, even kids with chicken pox, right? So we do all kinds of kids. So our test of who we will entertain with an original song, have an original song written and performed for, is, are you going through something that no person should go through, let alone a child? So we do think kids with cancer, kids with terminal illnesses, kids with severe injuries, kids going through incredible mental crisis, and kids with debilitating syndromes. So we've left it really open. When I was in corporate America, I had to live in a box. And I did what I was told, and I went to the cities I was supposed to go to. And when I created Chase the Music, what we decided was, I didn't want that box anymore. I have two boxes, kids and music. When the CU School of Theater and Dance came to me and said, hey, you're doing some cool stuff, can we work together? I said, well, we've always done instrumental and vocal work, but let's do dance stuff together. We can make those changes, and it's nice to be able to adjust. Our youngest child was Xander. Xander was about 6 months old. He was the preemie that was born way too early. Our oldest child was 44, and Teddy's a Down syndrome boy. And I like not having strict rules on who we can use this music to benefit. This is Jamin. Jamin had brain cancer. And he was an interesting character, very sweet and loving. And when we approached him that we wanted to do a piece for him, he was blind in this eye, deaf in this side, because the tumor was impinging on all those nerves. He didn't have a prognosis yet. They didn't know if he was going to make it. And we said, Jamin, we want to write a song for you and have an original song written and composed and performed just for you. And he said, no, thank you. Write it for somebody who's really sick. Nobody was sicker than Jamin. And Jamin is doing great today. This is Jamin. He had a brain tumor. What's your excuse? He pushed through. And I love this picture because this is Jamin with a clean brain scan. So he's got a beautiful piece. Thanks. And Molly Taylor, singer-songwriter, wrote his song called Determined. And she wrote it not just for Jamin, but for all those kids that are sicker than Jamin. Really cool. Our mission at Chase the Music is to give these kids battling critical conditions hope, strength, love, and joy. Hope for tomorrow, strength today, love from others, and joy from within. And that's what we do by creating original music and having it written and performed for these special kids. People ask, how does this all work? And I look at it, I kept getting that question. I didn't know how to explain it. And I finally came up with this idea of it's a puzzle. And I don't know where it's going to start. And so it might start with a kid. We might learn about a kid, like we did with Lauren. It might start with a performer. We've had artists come to us and say, I really want to do something. It might start with a venue. Anybody been to the Mishawaka bar up Pooter Canyon? Wonderful, fun place. They approached me and said, we love what you're doing. Would you do something here for us and for a child in our community? And the audience is really, really important because we fill that audience with people that love and care about that child. And then we always mix in at the bottom a little bit of extra love and magic. We take things a little further than most people, try and take them over the top. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So these are some of the folks that have been involved. Garrett Hope, composer, that's actually Jamin, and a variety of folks. And I think I've got Mickey Mouse there doing a little bit of magic for us. So does everybody know Psyche? Yay! So we just completed a month ago a piece with Psyche and Cellists for Change. And it was an amazing piece. And when we do pieces, it's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts that come together. So Psyche has the best smile. And as I was picking out photos, I have a photo from probably 6 years ago that's got that same smile in it when she did a piece for Katie. And I said, we're going to talk about Katie in a little bit. We're going to talk about Katie again. She keeps coming up. So I love that smile. This is what happens when you chase the music. This is Cellists for Change. This is a group of cellists that are out there rehearsing like crazy. They are ages 5 to 17, 18-ish range. And if you can get to a Cellists for Change performance, you will be blown away. I didn't know what to expect. When I went to a rehearsal, I'm like, okay, she's like, hey, yeah, they're 5 years old. And these little ones are right in the front, and they just watch. They're not reading music yet, and I don't know how they do it, but they know the music, and they're following the cues that are occurring. And the sound that comes out is beautiful from a band like this, from an orchestra like this. We pulled together, I would guess there were probably about 100 people in the audience. And El Paso, if you're familiar with El Paso, it's an organization for the Latino community that supports families that are having a tough time with adjusting into the community and finding resources and whatever it is. And Psyche was aware of them, and she actually had reached out to Teddy, the executive director, and Teddy was able to identify a member of their community whose name was Cheeto, and Cheeto has cancer. And he's here for treatment, trying to take care of his cancer. And we had an amazing event down at the Boulder Social Club. And if you haven't been to the Boulder Social Club, grab a kid. I'm available anytime. And they have taken all this stuff from the junkyard and made a playground out of it. They have cool umbrellas made out of VW hoods. They have an airplane crashed in the tree. They have a school bus that you can drive and open and close the door. Wonderful place for children. Beautiful place. Neat place to have an event. Because you're a kid, I don't want to stuff you necessarily into an auditorium and make you sit through 4 hours of Vivaldi to get to your piece. So we did a lot of music with them. And then most importantly in this event, this little boy Cheeto. He's just a wonderful little guy, and just love him. Just gotta love him. And I mentioned that we kind of throw that love and magic in. So we're doing it in a magical place. We're doing it with magical people. We've got a magical audience. And then I had a company from Philadelphia reach out, the Brave Beanie Project. And they make funny beanies, hats. And so they have a Rapunzel hat, they have Ninja Turtle hats, and so we finished off the performance by giving all the kids these cool hats, and they just love them. Take things over one step further than most people would take them. Anybody else go through COVID here? So we started a program Odd fact, I am the first presenter to cancel coming to this Rotary because of COVID. I had just returned from Italy and had replied to Paul, who I was scheduled for like the 28th of March, and said, Paul, I don't think I should present. And this is the 10th or 11th of March. He says, yeah, you're probably right. But I said, I want to present in person, and I don't want to do the whole Zoom thing. So here we are 2.5 years later doing it. Well, when you've got kids lined up and performances lined up, you can't just stop. And so our artists were amazing. We did lots of videos. We had lots of orchestral and large band pieces that were scheduled. And we couldn't just say, hey, sorry, kid, we're in a pandemic. I mean, you're 5 years old. You don't understand. I don't understand. And so we started doing video productions to do little snippets of the music. And we'd have soloists that would play parts of the melodies from each of their kids' song and talk about what the song was making them feel, so that when we finally get to do it live, they've got something to look forward to and they're keeping them going. We also kicked off this Quarantunes project, which I didn't realize it at the time, I hadn't thought about it, but it was a way for us to say, hey, there's always going to be kids that are isolated that we cannot be in person with, kids that are immunocompromised, kids that are in hospital facilities that we can't get into. So we started Zooming things. And I still love and I want to do the in-person stuff, but when I can't, we'll make do. So the back here, and if we had the music going, you'd actually be hearing a piece that was done for Colton, who's over the little guy on the right. You'll notice the airplane flying over the top. Colton's from Seward, Nebraska. His dad's a 747 and Black Hawk helicopter pilot. His grandparents run the Seward Airport, this little private fixed base airport. Every 4th of July, Seward has Independence Day USA, and they have an air show. Colton's life is hanging out at the airport on the weekends and watching the planes. He knows what every plane is. He lives around aviation. So we had this big, beautiful symphonic orchestra piece written for Colton, and we had it choreographed to aerobatic flight. So the July 4th, I told you, it's love and magic. Take it over the top. And so July 4th, 2019, right before COVID, we're at the Seward Airport, and we fly his piece. Little did we know that COVID was coming and that we couldn't put together 100 musicians. And I think we had about 800 people in the audience for that event. We just did that about a month ago in Lincoln with the University of Nebraska Lincoln Orchestra. Beautiful piece, fun to do it. These kids will blow you away. I met with Colton's grandfather at the airport the day after the performance a month ago. And he's having all kinds of extra problems, and they say he's looking good, but you never know because you're hearing stories from the parents and whatnot. And the grandfather says, yeah, the problems are because the doctor said nobody's lived this long with his particular cancer, and they don't know what to do. Connor's big brother, his name's Ty, amazing hockey player. And he was crying one night, and Stephanie, the mom, is very active on Facebook, and I was following what was happening with the family. And Ty was crying in his bed when he was supposed to be asleep one night. She went in to check on him. It's like, I'm worried about my brother. So we wrote a song for Ty. We wrote Team Player. And it's all about being a good hockey player on the team and a good team player at home supporting everybody. Because he's going through things that nobody should go through, especially not a kid. This is Jack. He's down here in Lakewood. And he's got Duchenne syndrome. And I just wanted to throw this slide up because these are shared experiences. It's not a gift just for a kid. It's a gift for the artists, it's a gift for the audience, it's a gift for future listeners. That one's not me, I don't think, I hope. And so for future listeners and future performers, you don't know, once the music is released, it goes out into the wild. His performance, I don't know if you know Stanley Lake High School, but they had a lot of tough times in that high school. So Jack himself was going through tough times. They didn't tell me this until the night of his premiere. They'd actually had a student in the high school light himself on fire in the cafeteria in front of everybody. They did horrible things. And the head of the school district came to me and said, thank you so much, because this community needs this. So beautiful things that can happen with an original piece of music and bringing together a community. I mentioned that the dance has been incorporated. So CU, School of Theater and Dance, approached me and said, can we do something? So we started a program, and every year, except for the last two, we do an in-person program between the dancers at CU, Boulder, and then a number of students. And this is Sarah with severe autism. She's nonverbal. And at her performance, and she's engaged in the performance, we actually actively have her dancing. And her mom is over on the side. She's got two instructors that are working, student instructors that she's working with. And this nonverbal little girl speaks. And she says, love to learn and beautiful. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I'm not a music therapist. Everybody remember? This is my educational background. But what I do know is that there's magic and things that come out of the music. This is Jennifer Dunn. Anybody know Jennifer? Director at Boulder High School Bands. 4 years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She got better. World's good. This last year, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It's not good. And she's got 3 beautiful girls. She's also got about 75 students that care about her. How many were band students? Yeah, band, and who loved their band director? Band directors were influential, beautiful people that really made a difference. And so we said, hey, those kids are going through something. They're losing their mom. They're losing their band director. They need a song. So we had a piece composed by David Wall, amazing composer, for the Boulder High School Band. They did a combined band between the high school and the junior high school bands to give us a nice, rich sound and a beautiful piece. If you listen carefully, it's actually playing, but it's muted. So it'll be on the replay. Maybe we can scooch it in or something. But a beautiful piece, and we let her direct it. It's got flute solos, because Jen's a flutist, but there was no way, she said, I can turn my back on the audience, but I won't turn the back on my kids. I need to have another flutist come in and help with that. So music is kind of cool because it's not just a short-term thing. It's there forever. And that's one of the things I love. It's very different than any other gift than I can imagine. This is Katie. Remember Katie? I'm sure you do, because you had a big smile with Katie. And Katie has a disease, AT, and I'll tell you in a second what it stands for, because I have to read it. It's on the next slide. And it's really hard to say. And it's a degenerative neural disease. And I just thought I'd share some of the comments that came out right after her performance. They made me a rock star. We did her performance down at E-Town, and downstairs at E-Town, below the theater space, is a green room, some special personal dressing rooms. We did up a special dressing room with her with stars and flowers, because we knew she was probably 12 years old at the time, 13 years old, and we knew she might get nervous around all these people. So it was important for us to make her a rock star. We dug up her kindergarten teacher, who she hadn't seen in like 5 or 6 years and was a really special person, to be part of that audience. I told you we make this puzzle. But E-Town's pretty good size. It seats 200 people. And we had about 150 people between Katie's family and friends and neighbors, teachers. The musicians brought friends and family. But we still had 30 seats that we thought were going to be empty. Get on the phone. Who would be the best to help fill out concert seats? Extra grandmas and grandpas? Absolutely. Who loves kids and music? The folks at the senior citizen living home. We pulled them in and gave Katie an extra 10 or 20 grandparents to participate in her music. Her dad said, this is better than our trip to Disney. A couple months before, they'd been granted a trip to Disney. And this one hit me hard because I knew what I was doing was special, but I didn't know if anybody else appreciated it. And I started thinking about, why was it so special? Well, the reason was Nick Halsey, the composer for this piece, learned and spent time with Katie to understand her personality. She loved to ski. She's part of the Winter Park Adaptive Ski Program. And when she couldn't ski anymore, they put her into adaptive sit skis and all kinds of stuff. She loved that freedom. So his piece called Katie's Run is all about that freedom of skiing and being out in the open. And it's expressed through her piece. Nick put it all into that piece. There are about a dozen cellists, 3 or 4 woodwinds, and a percussionist that also performed in that piece. And they put their all into that piece and surrounded her with love. Then there were 200 people with an extra 20 grandparents she didn't know what she had. And she loved it. So her dad realized there's so much love in that room that 2-hour performance was now, probably an hour performance, was now better than 3 days at Disney. When Katie was sad, I saw her mom a couple of years after the performance. And I was talking to her, and she says, when Katie's sad, she goes in her room, and I can hear her song playing through the door. And then she comes out, and she gets happy again. Music can change you. I went to Katie's memorial last week. She died at age 21. And her dad said, just one more song. Her song was Katie's Run. And I won't even try and pronounce it because I'm going to mess it. But that's what killed Katie. We did good things for Katie. One of Katie's quotes was, I have a good life. And she really did. She really did. And I was glad to be part of that. So what I'd like to do in conclusion is just ask you, will you chase the music with me? There's all kinds of ways to do things. So you can volunteer, you can help with things, you can help with marketing, you can help at events and just talk to kids and families. If you're a performer, we'd love to have you perform. If you'd like to network, you guys Rotarians are networkers, I think. And you guys, you start with one person, but one person knows somebody else. So participate, network. Who do you know? Do you know a child that is in need? Do you know a musician that's in need? And then lastly, I'd ask to invest. You can do what I'm doing. You can make these changes for these kids. On that note, thank you all so much, and I hope you chase the music forever. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thanks.
For a few questions, will you take a
Ooh.
couple questions?
Yeah. Is there? Okay, thanks so much.
We have about,
Yeah.
we have about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
3 or 4 minutes.
Yes, it is.
All right, well, I have a loud voice if it's not on. So a fascinating program, and thank you for what you did do and what you created. I'm just fascinated, though, in terms of, the composers, are they volunteer? How do you, first of all, do you have I don't know what you call it, a group of composers you primarily work with, or are you looking for new people all the time? Or
I'm
how does
always
that work?
looking for new.
Okay.
And I'm looking for everything. So I'm looking for composers, performers, kiddos. And my belief is our composers need to be paid retail rates. We have to pay them because they're not at the Boulder for an hour saying bib number 47 in 2 hours and 5 minutes. They are putting their heart into this. David Wall tells me he put in probably 300 and some odd hours into writing the piece for Jennifer. It involves meeting with the family, going to rehearsals with the high school band, rewrites. When you write a big piece, it's a lot of effort. So those people deserve to be paid. Absolutely.
Do we have any more questions?
Any other
in the room?
questions?
I don't think we have anybody on Zoom. Alrighty, I'm going to pass it to Psyche.
And while Psyche comes up, this is a test. What is the new word? Gazantut. Thank you. I got the front, you could tell the front. The back row, high cheap seats, you know. I went and talked to you guys before. So yeah, thank you so much.
Clark, thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon your organization, your incredible stories, and your just beautiful heart. I am honored to have experienced Chase the Music firsthand, and I will always remember the smile on Carlitos' face as he heard his piece for the first time, and the hug that Carlitos' mom gave me after the experience where she just held on for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Chase the Music truly does provide love, joy, strength, and hope to these youth and their families. So on behalf of the Boulder Rotary Club, we are going to donate 100 doses of polio vaccine in your name.
Nice. Thank you so much.